and I was pumping my fist, but I was looking over there at the bench, and Chuck Daly was telling me to call timeout because I'm the guy that takes the ball out.
This is the out of bounds line. That joker caught the ball, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, he going out of bounds. That dude did this, like a ballerina.
Our team had an unbelievable ability late to really win a lot of games.
Yeah, execution, playing together, and trusting one another has a lot to do with it.
So one time I shot a jumper, and Lambert did it to me, and I stepped on his foot, but I stepped on a high and twisted my ankle. I don't know, a quarter or two later, he was shooting that jumper. I slid mine in there. That's the last time he ever did it.
Larry Bird didn't talk about revenge, but if you watched him long enough, you knew when it was happening. He didn't need a camera. He didn't need a quote. He just needed the game and one opportunity to take back control. In the 1987 season, Bird had already built his legend. MVPs, championships, a legend status. But he was also playing through pain. And then came the Pistons. Younger, louder, more physical, and completely unafraid of the Celtics. One thing was sure, if you had the bad boy Pistons in your calendar, you knew it was about to be a rough night. And for Larry and the Celtics, they were no exception, and had to fight their way to a win. Literally. And in Larry's eyes, he saw one player in the center of it all. Bill Laimbeer, the definition of a bad boy Piston, and had zero regard for human life on the court when it came to physically tormenting his opponents. Bill had no mind games. He was straight up in your face physical with every punch he drew, feeling like a brick. So when the Eastern Conference Finals came around, it wasn't just another series to Bird. It was a challenge to everything he stood for. His team was running out of time. The Pistons wanted the crown in the East, and by Game 5, they were close to taking it. That's when Bird made a decision, not with words, but with one play. One read, one perfect steal in the closing seconds of a must-win game. It didn't just save the Celtics, it reminded everyone that Larry Bird was still, and always will be, Larry Legend. By 1987, the Boston Celtics were still really good, but you could see the wear and tear starting to show. Think about it, they'd been to 3 straight finals from 84 to 86, won 2 championships, and now here they were back in the Eastern Conference Finals for the 4th year running. That's just brutal on your body. The core was still there. Bird, McHale, Parrish, Dennis Johnson, Danny Ainge. All great players, all proven winners. But man, they were beat up. McHale was literally playing on a broken foot, like actually broken. He could barely walk between games. Parrish had all kinds of leg and ankle problems that had been building up over the years. And Bird, his back was already giving him trouble. Plus, he had bone spurs in his elbow. He was still Larry Bird, obviously, but you could tell his body wasn't cooperating like it used to. The thing is, their bench wasn't great, so Casey Jones pretty much had to keep running these guys into the ground. In the playoffs, that's just not sustainable against younger teams. And Detroit, they were coming up fast. The Pistons had this perfect mix of talent and attitude. Isaiah Thomas was running the show. He could pick you apart with his passing, or just take over and score when he needed to. Joe Dumars was the ideal partner for him, super steady and reliable. Dennis Rodman was starting to become this defensive menace, just everywhere on the court. Then you had the physical guys, Laimbeer and Mahorn. These were the guys who would eventually make the Bad Boys famous. They didn't care about Boston's history or reputation. They wanted to knock them off and take over. Detroit was deeper, younger, and they played this really physical style that was designed to wear you down. It wasn't just basketball strategy, it was generational. The established champions versus the guys trying to take their spot.
The Pistons were probably one of the best defensive teams that's probably played in the finals.
But they was physical, that's why, right?
They were so physical, but long. When you have people like Dennis and John Sally, I mean, you get past you might get past Joe Dumars, but you got both of them to contend with.
And Lambier.
Yeah, and Lambier, he would just slam you, right? I mean, just hard foul you. And that 3-guard combination of Isaiah, Joe Dumars, and Vinnie Johnson was unbelievable.
By the time they met in the '87 Eastern Conference Finals, you could feel how much these teams didn't like each other. It wasn't just about making the finals anymore. It was about who was going to run the Eastern Conference going forward. Larry Bird had always been a competitor. He didn't mind physical play. He didn't complain about hard fouls. But what he didn't respect was the style of play guys like Lambier brought to the court. To Bird, Lambier wasn't just physical. He was dirty, cheap shots, flops, late contact. That wasn't basketball to him, and he wasn't shy about saying it. There's a difference between playing hard and playing dirty, Bird said in an interview once. Lambier crosses that line every night. The two had clashed before. In one game, Bird was ejected after throwing an elbow following a foul by Lambier. In another, he had to be held back after Lambier took a shot at Parrish under the rim. It wasn't just competitive fire, there was a genuine dislike between them. The thing about Bill Lambier is that he didn't just get under Larry Bird's skin. He managed to break even the most composed players on that Celtics team. And nobody was more composed than Robert Parrish. Parrish had been in the league for years, dealt with all kinds of physical play, and always kept his composure. But Lambier, he found a way to push Parrish over the edge. Parrish unleashed a devastating 2-punch combo that left Lambier on the ground bloodied.
The thing that amazed me about that was not only did you lose control and you punched him down to the ground, but more than me was none of his teammates came to his rescue. I didn't see nobody go at you.
Yeah, I was kind of looking over my shoulder, Max. I thought I was going to get sucker punched, to be honest. But like you said, no one helped him. So I don't know what kind of message they were trying to send to him. I guess they had enough of his antics. I don't know what that was all about.
The Pistons weren't subtle about it either. They didn't care about Boston's legacy. They wanted to take their spot. They felt the Celtics were getting old, and they weren't afraid to say it. Going into the 1987 Eastern Conference Finals, that energy was on full display. Boston took Game 1 at home with a comfortable win. Bird was efficient, and the Celtics looked sharp. Game 2 was another win in the Garden for the Celtics, bringing the series to 2-0. However, the tides shifted the next 2 games in Detroit, with the Pistons securing both games on their home floor in a similar dominant fashion. So after 4 games, the series was tied 2-2. Game 5 would be back in Boston, but it didn't feel like the Celtics had control. The Pistons were getting more confident with every game. Their body language had changed. They weren't reacting to Boston anymore. They were pushing the pace, dictating the tone, and Bird could feel it. He didn't say much to the media, but behind the scenes, he was locked in, watching Detroit's sets, studying how they spaced the floor, looking for small advantages, because he knew what was at stake. If Boston lost Game 5 at home, they'd go back to Detroit needing to win on the road in Game 6, against a team with fresher legs and something to prove. That's a tough spot for any team, let alone one with 3 starters nursing injuries. But to really understand the stakes of that Game 5, you have to understand the personal tension that had built between Larry Bird and Bill Lambier over the years. Their rivalry wasn't just about basketball, it was about how basketball should be played. Bird grew up tough. He played through pain, took contact, never backed down, but he also believed in a certain respect for the game. Compete hard? Sure, but don't cheapen it, don't fake it, don't turn it into theater. To him, that's exactly what Lambier did. Lambier played with his elbows up. He flopped constantly. He delivered late hits, jawed at refs, and stirred things up. And he did it all while playing the villain on purpose. To Bird, it felt calculated and hollow. There was real heat between them. In 1985, Bird famously threw the ball at Lambier's head after a foul and had to be restrained. He didn't regret it. He even said later that Lambier didn't belong in the league. Lambier, for his part, didn't care. He leaned into the role. He knew he got under people's skin, and against Bird, that was part of the plan. When Game 5 came along, it had been a war from the opening tip. The Celtics came in battered. Kevin McHale was playing through a broken foot. Robert Parrish was sore all over, and Bird was nursing nagging injuries of his own. But none of that mattered. Both teams played through pain and exhaustion, especially the starters. Elbows were exchanged, hard fouls went uncalled, and neither side shied away from the physicality. It was classic 80s basketball, bodies hitting the floor. The Garden crowd added on to the environment, having no tolerance for the Pistons at all, and tension boiling over every trip down the court until the end of the fourth quarter. With 17 seconds left in the game, Larry inbounds the ball to Dennis Johnson, who scans the floor and gives the ball back to Larry as if hoping for a miracle. Larry takes Mahorn to the rim and is met by two other players who end up blocking his attempted lay-in. The ball ends up out of bounds. Detroit ball. The Pistons had clawed their way to a 107-106 lead before this point, and with 5 seconds left, it seemed as if Detroit had this game in the palm of their hands. Isaiah Thomas then rushes to the sidelines, hoping to get a quick inbounds pass in to finally seal the game. As Isaiah scanned the floor, options started closing fast. Then he saw Lambier flash open near the basket and fired a pass. But he never saw Larry Bird coming.
I'll never forget, everything just went in slow motion. Jess Kersey is standing there. I'm looking at him, and we froze, we celebrating. And Jess Kersey starts to count, because he's standing there and he has the one count. So I run over, we look at the bench, no timeout, nothing. So I run over and I grab the ball. And this is probably one of the most incredible plays that's ever happened against me and that probably I've ever witnessed. From an athletic standpoint, two people being in sync and Bird just playing every second. And that's what the Celtics taught us, to play every second, not to play 47 and a half minutes, but to play a full 48. So I grabbed the ball from the referee. Lambier's a good foul shooter. I never had taken the ball out. That wasn't my thing, right? I throw it up. Bird sneaks in. I didn't even see him. But the thing I remember the most is that joker. This is the out of bounds line. That joker caught the ball, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, he going out of bounds. That dude did this, like a ballerina, right? And if you go back and you watch the play, that dude is on his toes. The baseline is right up under his toes. And in my mind, he must have stood there for about 5 seconds because everything was going in slow motion in my mind, right? And it's like, I'm like, and then it's just a strange moment. I'm like, damn, how you doing that?
Bird anticipated it perfectly. He broke off his man, leapt into the lane, and snatched the pass clean before it ever reached Lambier. Without hesitation, Bird turned in the air and zipped a pass to Dennis Johnson, who had instinctively cut baseline after the turnover. DJ caught it in stride and laid it in. Celtics up 108-107. During the timeout, you can see Larry come up and hug Dennis Johnson near the huddle, and that was all you needed to see to know that this game was sealed. The steal became one of Larry's greatest moments in the league, not just because of what it did, but how it happened.
And I went back to a player, and I seen Lambier go into the baseline, get the ball. And I thought a timeout was coming because I knew they had a timeout left, they could advance the ball. But Isaiah gets it and throws a lob pass. And I think Jerry Sisson was on him, covering him, and Isaiah had to throw it up a little bit, and he did. And that ball seemed like it just stayed in the air. And somehow I got there and got my fingertips on it and popped it back to myself. And out of the corner of my eye, I seen a white jersey, and I knew it was DJ. It had to be DJ. And I had a little shot there I could have took, but I kick it off the DJ, and he lays it up and in, and I think there's 1 second left on the time, and we end up winning the game. It's just a reaction play, like I told you earlier. Sometimes you do things, you just do it because you've done it so many times. I'm not saying I made a steal like that thousands of times, but I reacted that way thousands of times, and I'm just lucky enough to get my fingertips on the ball.
In the post-game locker room, Isaiah Thomas was stunned. He said, "I tried to force it in, and Bird made a great play." You could tell by his face, it wasn't just a physical mistake, it was emotional, the kind that stays with a player. Dennis Johnson, who laid in the game winner, later said, "It was like he had eyes in the back of his head. As soon as he stole it, I just cut to the basket and he found me." Bird's version? Typical Bird, straight-faced. "They just threw it to me," he said. "I was just lucky to be in the right place." Bird's steal also struck a chord because it came against Detroit, notably Laimbeer, a player Bird had long disliked. In a previous game in that series, Bird famously said, "If I threw a punch like I throw the ball, he'd probably be in another world right now." After a confrontation with Laimbeer ended in their ejections. Laimbeer said it himself that he wouldn't go out of his way to respect another player's game, and he made it clear that he played with intensity and aggression, sometimes bending the line, but never intending malice. The tension never evaporated after that series. Decades later, Laimbeer was asked if he and Bird ever reconciled. He replied, "I just don't care to have a relationship with him." That response summed up a rivalry born of style, identity, and a fundamental difference in how they believed the game should be played. For Bird, the steal was more than a game turner. It was a symbolic ending. It showed that against Detroit's physicality and mental games, the Celtics still had a mind for the moment. Bird never sought cheap theatrics. He didn't provoke. He outthought. And in that stolen pass and 1 second conversion, he delivered a quiet but powerful revenge. Laimbeer may have been the embodiment of the bad boy era, but Bird made it clear that intelligence and poise were still the best weapons. That night in '87 wasn't just a win. It was a small victory in a long feud, one that Bird didn't need to talk about, because the play did all the retaliation. The Celtics managed to win Game 7 at the Garden, this grinding, exhausting battle where their veterans found just enough left in the tank to hold off Detroit one more time. But honestly, it felt more like they were delaying the inevitable than actually winning something. When they got to the finals, you could see they had nothing left. Magic and the Lakers beat them in 6 games, and it wasn't really that close. The Celtics dynasty was still technically alive, but everyone could see it was hanging by a thread. Detroit didn't just go away after that loss. They came back the next year even tougher and more determined. In 1988, they made it to the finals and pushed the Lakers to 7 games. They were right there. Then in '89 and '90, they finally broke through, winning back-to-back championships. The Bad Boys had officially taken over the East. Looking back on it now, Bird doesn't really talk about the dramatic moments or the heroics from that series. He remembers how hard it was, how much everything hurt, and how much respect he had for what Detroit was building. "They were coming," Bird said years later. "We knew it. You could feel it. We held them off that year, but just barely. That was the start of their time." To Larry, it wasn't just about hard fouls. It was about intent. "Why would I shake the hand of someone who tried to hurt me?" he once said.
You left the bad blood on the court for the most part, but not with Laimbeer. I never really ever liked Laimbeer in any social situation.
No.
Yeah.
And it's because he was a dirty player.
Right.
Now, he had to do what he had to do, I understand that. But you take like Ricky Mahorn, he'd hit you and all that, but he'd hit you, you know you're going to get hit.
Yeah.
He didn't try to maim you.
Right.
He'll try to hurt you.
Right.
And, he was one of them guys, you shoot a jumper, he'd try to slide his foot underneath your ankle so you twist your ankle. And That's why Parrish
Did he
always
really used to
did
do that?
If you watch any of our old games, Parrish was always twisting his ankle against the Pistons. So one time I shot a jumper and Lambert did it to me, and I stepped on his foot, but I stepped on a high, didn't twist my ankle. I don't know, a quarter or two later, he was shooting that jumper. I slid mine in there. That's the last time he ever did it.
Really?
Yeah. But he was, I mean, he had to play the way he had to play, and we all understood that. But if you carry it too far, you carry it over the line, you got to protect yourself.
That's who Bird was. Fiercely competitive, unapologetically honest. And on that night in '87, with everything on the line, he got his revenge the best way he knew how. By winning.